To protect and to serve has become one of the most recognizable phrases in law enforcement across the country. And throughout its over 50 years of use, it has come to embody the spirit, the dedication, and the professionalism of law enforcement officers. I'm Joni Sutter for Nutmeg TV, and I'm happy to say that joining me today is Lieutenant Eric Peterson, who's the Public Information Officer for Plainville, and Detective Posadas from the Plainville Police Department to discuss the scams that are occurring and how to avoid them. Welcome, gentlemen, to the program today. So exciting to have a detective, plainclothes detective here, to be able to ask some questions to. But I would like to start with you, if I could, Lieutenant Peterson. Public Information Officer means what in the town of Plainville?
Well, what I do is I work with different news and newspaper agencies. If there's something, we had a serious crime or a serious accident, I work with them to give them the details that they need to educate the public, or to give the public the information that they need.
Mm-hmm. So kind of like what we see on the state police division, you know, when there's something big that happens in the state and you turn on the local news and there's the information coming, you do the same thing for the town of Plainville.
Correct.
That's wonderful.
Yes.
Well, thanks for being here today, and you're going to join in our conversation about scams. And I'm going to turn it over to you, Detective Posadas, and I think that I was starting with the elderly and saying to you before the show started, you know, is that the population that is hit the most when you look at these crimes?
They're hit frequently. A lot of the scams, and whether it's through the internet, and then they're not knowing how to use it properly. The telephone calls, it seems like the elderly are targeted quite often.
And when we talk about telephone calls, it seems that, you know, so many people just have cell phones as their home phone. Not, you know, I don't know what the percentages are, but a lot of the younger people just have cell phone. They don't have the home phone, where the older people have still a landline, many of them, or a digital phone. But there are these robocalls that everybody hates, and they say, take me off the, you know, I'm on a do not call list, you know, don't call me. Are those the way scam phone calls are coming in, or is there a person on the other end?
No, there's usually a person on the other end. And the issue with the telephone calls is that even with caller ID, you really don't know who's calling. There's ways to spoof the telephone numbers to make them seem like they're coming from somewhere else. We had incidences in Plainville where somebody spoofed the Plainville Police Department's phone number one time to call somebody up and harass them. And it made it seem like the phone call was coming directly from the police department. So when you look at the caller ID and you see it's the IRS or the White House, it doesn't necessarily mean that's where the phone call is coming from.
And the antenna should go up.
Correct.
Saying,
Yes, and the thing is, the information, if the bank needs information, and even if your caller ID says this is coming from your bank, it's very easy to say, I'll call you back, and call the local branch, call the 1-800 number that's on your statement that comes in every month on the back of your credit card. You call back in, and there's no way for them to intercept that call.
and I would say the same thing would be true on the internet. And I'll just digress a little bit and tell you a little personal story. I sold something on PayPal, on Craigslist. Okay, Craigslist, we can talk about Craigslist and the amount of scams that may happen on Craigslist. And I sold a string of pearls on Craigslist and used the PayPal account, right? PayPal, for those of you who don't know, the person who would put the money into PayPal, and then PayPal would pay me. So they're like the intermediary. Well, I got an email that said the money is now in the account. So go ahead and send the pearls, because of course you're not going to send the pearls if the money's not in the account. So I assumed it was PayPal. It was not PayPal. So I sent the pearls. Oh. And I called PayPal and I said, geez, I'm not seeing, 2 days, 3 days, what are you guys doing over there? I'm not seeing the money in my account. And they said it wasn't PayPal. And so I was able to learn a very valuable lesson, and PayPal said, we will never contact you via email. You would have to, we may contact you and say there's something in your account to look at, like the bank is sending you a message. You must go into the PayPal account using your password, and then you can get the information.
Yes.
So, but the internet I was able to use for a good way, and I was able to use Google Earth, and I was able to track the pearls all the way to Alaska and get the license plate number off the car in the driveway and give it to the local authorities there, and I did get my pearls back. So that was the happy ending to the story.
Good work.
But,
Good investigative work.
But when we talk about the internet, how do you ever keep up?
It's hard. It's constantly changing. There's ways for people to hide their identity online. and it makes it very hard. And we're locked into a certain jurisdiction too, and a lot of the people committing these crimes are not even in the United States. So it makes it very hard for us to follow up for those types of scams.
But I must say that the Bristol Police Department, when I walked in and told my internet story, and I thought that the young police officer was going, oh no, this lady sold pearls, they went to Alaska, like what am I going to do? But he did work with me and the Alaska police officers, and they were able to find out that this woman who accepted the pearls was told that there was someone in the military who was coming home, and he was asking her, they were dating online, right? She didn't even know him.
Yeah.
Would you accept some packages for me? So of course she's like, sure. So she's accepting all these packages, and the Alaska Police Department said, you really need to bring all those packages here. She hadn't opened them, and they were jewelry from all over the place. So dating scams,
Those
talk
happen.
about that.
Those happen quite often too.
Tell us a little bit about how that works in Plainville.
We've had a couple incidences with bank accounts. We had a similar incident where somebody was accepting packages and turning those packages back out to another location in Texas. We had a gentleman who was sending money, wiring money to somebody outside of the country who wanted to get back that he met on a dating website. And then he thought he was sending the money to an attorney because somebody contacted him with an email that had lawyer attached to it. But again, it's the same, it's a big pool for these scam artists to fish from and find somebody that will believe what they're telling them.
And they get smarter, so we have to get smarter. So what are some of the ways that we can educate the public? Because I consider myself educated, and yet I was a part of a scam. So what are some of the ways that we can, obviously if you see White House coming on the phone, well, or Eversource, tell us about that.
Well, we've had a few scams in town. One local business received a phone call from a person claiming they were a representative from Eversource, and they were behind on their electricity bill. They needed to pay $2,000 some odd immediately, or the electricity would be shut off. And they wanted them to go to the pharmacy or local store, Walmart, get some sort of money card, make the payment immediately. And what we tell the public is, business owners, residents of town, hang up and call back. Go get your statement from your electric company. Look at the 800 number. Call back. Find out. Sometimes these businesses, they're not too sure because they have, a lot of bills going on, and if they know they're up on their bills, then that's even more of a alert to say, hey, I pay my bills every month. Let me hang up and call back the company directly and look to speak to somebody and go from there.
Okay. I know that sometimes these emails come through that say alert. If you're getting the car and you're at the grocery store, there's a way that people can get how to open your car door, those key fobs, that they can track that, and so then they can, something on their phone, and then they can get that, so make sure. How do you find out when you see these alert emails that come through? A lot of times elderly people pass those on, and they pass them on because they want everybody to be safe, that they know, to know if they're true or not. There's Snopes, which is a website. How do they verify whether something is a true scam or something that may not be?
One of the things that I've told people to look at is that website, Snopes, to see what they've reported on it. And they research facts on the information to see if it's accurate or not. Most of it is just, an email that people want spread around and see how far they can get their little story out there. I don't know of any incidents in Plainville where anybody's captured a key fob for a car or anything like that.
Mm-hmm. That's good to know. So let's talk about the scanner cards. That's another thing that, I happened to buy them at Christmas and gave them to all my friends and family, and they're the little cards that you put in your wallet, and it's supposed to go between your credit cards to enable or not enable someone to be able to get your information. Do those work?
I think they do work to block some of the cards, but not all of the cards have that capability. So if you have one of those cards, you can just tap on the reader and it reads the card. Those are the cards that would be susceptible. Mm-hmm. If it's a card you need to insert or swipe and doesn't have that capability, then it would be impossible for anybody to steal that information without having the card in their possession.
Okay, that's good to know. And now the banks are giving us cards with a little, I don't know what you
chip.
call it, a little chip on there. You have to leave it inserted in there.
Yep.
Let's talk about greed a little bit, because I think that's what kind of stems a lot of these things. I was asking you before we started, you know, what propagates this kind of activity? And money?
Yeah, we've had quite a few scams involving big ticket items, cars, where people will buy cars through Craigslist. They will actually get a tracking number from a freight distributor. They'll see pictures of the car. They'll talk to people on the phone, and they will wire money or send money out through Western Union, thousands of dollars for a car, thinking they're only paying half for it. They have a tracking number, so they think it exists, and then the car never shows up, because you don't need to actually ship something to get a tracking number. You can just call a freight company and say, I need to ship a 3,000-pound item, and they will give you a tracking number for that item. So everything seems legitimate. They've even gone as far as to send faxes to the people showing the bill of lading and the VIN number and all of that stuff.
Oh, how awful.
And some of the research is very simple. The address of where the car is located. You said you used Google Maps or Google Earth to look at it. Research the address where the car is. Sometimes it's just an empty lot, or it's a business. It's not a real, residence.
Would you suggest buying a vehicle online?
Not from my experience.
Yeah, not out of state, and not to go, without even going somewhere to see the car and looking at it. If it's like Detective Peseta said, if it's something that's too good to be true, it probably is. If you're buying a vehicle half the price, 8 states away, it's probably a scam.
Are people hanging around Craigslist that shouldn't be? There's people, Craigslist, it's merchandise exchange, great. But are there others hovering to look at and get in touch with people who are on there for honest exchange?
Yeah, I think there's people on there looking to scam people out of money on a regular basis.
I mean, Craigslist is great. There's a lot of good opportunities on there, but like with anything, there are predators out there, so beware.
Beware. And let's talk about Facebook. Let's talk about social media. As a detective, how is social media used to solve crimes?
It can help us track people down.
We don't want to give away all the tips, but...
Of course not. No, we can't give away all the tips, but it still amazes me how much information people put on Facebook and other social media sites with little to no thought about what can happen with that information.
And that goes back to the scams with the grandkids and the nieces calling the elderly. These questionnaires and these little surveys that are people put out on Facebook contain a lot of personal information. Your birthplace, mother's maiden name. Those
pictures, yeah.
That information can be used very easily to use social engineering on your bank, call your bank up, change PIN numbers, contact information, things like that.
So give us a takeaway for social media. What can we think about with social media, especially our young people who are most vulnerable, I think, sometimes because maybe the common sense isn't as strong as it could be. Yeah. Or they just there's a lot of innocence there, so they don't think that something bad can happen. So what would the take? I mean, because it's great, it's fun to use social media. We're connecting in different ways with social media than we ever have before. So what would be our takeaway that we would maybe teach at school?
I would say think before you post something. First of all, it's there forever. Can come back at any time. And then just the information that you put out, just be cautious on what you're telling the public if it's not set private. That's one of the biggest things, when I talk to kids about social media is understand the privacy settings of the sites you're using and verify who you're talking to. Not just make it public for everybody to see. As
an employer, that's one of our checks, before when we hire someone, and it's very interesting to know how many times those protections aren't there, and they're open to anybody, not just their friends and family. So we talked about the phone being a possible way to connect with people, as well as the internet being a possible way to connect with people. What are some of the other things that you see in a small town like Plainville as a detective?
We still get mailings. People will receive mailings that look legitimate. The lottery scams, those types of things, those are still going around.
What are they asking for?
A lot of times it's you won the lottery, but you have to pay the taxes first.
Oh.
Right. Yeah, you see that a lot where is if something tells you have to send money in order to get something, that should set off a red flag. Because we've seen that with different things on Craigslist or other things where you work from home, but send some money to set something up. Do your research, because it could be a scam.
Okay, that's good to know. And packages, there was a lot of talk over the winter season around the holidays when UPS was delivering packages, and there was actually a woman, I think it was on Channel 3, that they were showing that was following the truck and picking the packages up. And unfortunately, you know, the items were stolen. So what do we do in Plainville with deliveries? Because we're ordering on the internet. It's so convenient. It's wonderful. A lot of places are offering free shipping, so it makes good sense. And are there any initiatives out there?
It's difficult because, you know, we're out there patrolling as much as we can, but if you're having a package delivered, I'd recommend that you have it signed for. So UPS, FedEx, whoever is delivering it, just can't leave it on your step.
It's something that's signed for. I know one of the local area municipalities has decided that around the holiday time they're going to offer the police department as a drop-off location. You have to fill out a special form, and there's certain things, because they're not going to let everybody drop off there. You have to be registered with them. But it's a nice idea, especially at the holiday time. So what got you into police work, Detective Posaitis?
Well, I grew up in Plainville. My father was on the volunteer fire department for over 40 years, so I kind of grew up in that public safety type of
Great fire
household.
department in Plainville.
Yep. He's retired a few years ago, so.
So you became a police officer, a regular police officer.
Yes.
And then you decided to go into detective work, or is that something that does administration say, okay, you're going to go into the detective division, or is that something?
Well, yeah, I mean, our detective division is an assignment. Usually we have officers who are interested put in for it, then officers that seem to excel at their caseload as a patrol officer would be a good fit to be a detective. We would assign somebody based on usually performance.
Okay, and then there's different detective divisions within the department. I don't know if I'm using the right wording, but you're a plainclothes detective, but there's others like those that we visited with earlier in another show, which were not. They were working on other kinds of things. So would you be one who would still work on traffic investigations, or are there severities of the case, you know, maybe something more involved and complicated would go to someone like you?
Yeah, I have some specialized training in computer forensics, so those cases usually end up on my desk to follow up on.
I just find that fascinating. I mean, there's so many ways around in the computer. When you hear them say that they've taken a computer from someone's home, and you think, well, they deleted all the info. How can they possibly still get what's on the computer? And I know you can't give away all the secrets, but if you're, you know, I have a couple of computers that I'm waiting for the sign to come and say, okay, the town's having electronic disposal day. Okay, would you suggest to a homeowner that they should do something to their computer before it goes to the electronic disposal day?
Yes.
What would that be?
Take the hard drive out of it and destroy it.
Okay, which would be like take a hammer to it?
Yeah, that would be the easiest way.
Okay.
There is software that you can run that will wipe a hard drive completely. It's very time consuming, and if you're throwing it out anyways, it really doesn't matter, but a hammer works every time.
Okay, that way there's no, you know, that can't get in the hands of anybody else who might get any kind of information. That's good to know. And Lieutenant Peterson, how about you? How long have you been serving in Plainville? I think it's been a long time.
18 years.
18 years. That's a long time. So you've seen Plainville through and through and through.
Yes.
Over again. And how did you start out?
I mean, as I was getting close to graduating high school, I was trying to figure out what I wanted to do. Police work was something I was always interested in. I was active with my local police department that I lived in, and decided to go to college for criminal justice, and just wanted a career, a job, something that was exciting and, you know, different every day. And, you know, I fell into the right line of work. It's something that I've been doing 18 years, and I've been having fun. I enjoy it. It's been a good career.
And you guys have a really nice facility over there. I mean, what is 5, 6 years old, or is it older?
Probably closer to 12 years now. But
12,
yeah,
boy,
it's
time
held up pretty
flies.
good. Yeah, we were fortunate to get a new police station 12, 13 years ago. Moved out of the basement of the town hall, and
Yeah, that had its limitations, certainly.
Yes.
And you have much more room where you are now, and so I think it's good. But yet you're still very accessible to people.
Right.
I know that You have a great DARE program over in Plainville, and the domestic violence divot team. I mean, that's wonderful that they have all those resources available to people to help out. So thank you for everything that you do. I know that it's not always easy work, but it's rewarding, I'm sure, and the community really is very lucky to have you. Is there anything else that you wanted to add before we end today, as far as maybe another takeaway message for the public regarding any kind of scams or detective work?
I would say for the scams is to, follow your gut feeling. A lot of the people that come in say, I thought this seemed a little bit, odd. And the other thing too is they can always give us a phone call and say, there's something that's happening. I'm not sure if this is legitimate or not. We're doing a fundraiser actually for our police union right now, and we get calls all the time. Is this legitimate?
That's a good one.
It's, yes, it's legitimate. It only takes 2 seconds to answer that for people. So,
and we do get quite a few people that call in because we've gotten that word out there where our dispatchers will know. They'll take a call. Hey, someone just called me, and they'll give them some details. They'll say, yeah, that appears to be a scam. We have a lot of calls that we're getting on that. So, we just urge people, call the police department if something doesn't seem right, especially if they've invoked the police department or some type of law enforcement on the phone call. Hang up, call your local police department.
You bring up a very good point. There are calls that come in. I've had those calls myself, asking for money for a police union, maybe not even for my town. And they're not actually, they're an agency hired to try to solicit funds. And they can sometimes not be very nice on the other end of the phone when you're saying no, and you wonder, gee, where is the money going? Is it going to the local police department or the state police department? So it's always good to ask before you to make that monetary donation, I guess.
Yes.
So, well, thank you for being here today. It was a lot of fun talking with you, and I hope educating to the public about what to look for. And if you have a question, just ask. Especially before you send any money. So on behalf of all of us in Nutmeg TV, thank you again for watching the show, and we'll see you next time.